Hey everybody, we only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. My name is Sreekar. I'm a founding engineer at Validin. With me is Alex Milenkoski, senior threat researcher at SentinelOne. So today we're going to talk to you a little bit about North Korean threat intelligence. North Korean threat actors investigating public threat intelligence. And the story that we're going to tell you starts on March 11th. Validin's founder, Kenneth, where are you, there you are, he published a blog investigating Lazarus and the Bybit heist. More specifically, Kenneth was investigating infrastructure that Lazarus used leading up to the Bybit heist as part of testing and staging. So this blog was published on March 11th. And the following day, on March 12th, Validin's community platform sees a massive influx of signups from Gmail accounts. And those of you who track North Korea, specifically Contagious Interview, might actually recognize some of these emails, because we definitely did. And I'll walk through the attribution in a second, but a quick contextual note, Validin's community platform is fully self-service. Anybody can sign up for it. And so from our perspective, when we saw a bunch of North Korean, what we knew to be North Korean emails sign up for the platform, we were immediately concerned. And so at this point, it's when we reached out to Alex, who actually very quickly helped us confirm that these were in fact North Korea, and it led to us taking a number of actions. I'll walk through those in a minute, but to start with, attribution. How did we know that these were Contagious Interview North Korean emails? Also, very quick context for those of you who aren't familiar with Contagious Interview. It is a North Korean threat actor. It's an operation that basically posts fake job postings, and then when potential candidates actually sign up and go through the interview process, they're prompted to download and install malicious scripts that eventually give these North Korean actors access to the information on their devices as part of espionage and other financial gain. So from our perspective, we knew these were North Korean threat actors for three real reasons. For starters, when you take the emails that signed up for the platform and you actually pivot off registration records, what you find is that the emails were used to register a number of known Contagious Interview domains. This in itself is highly suspicious, but the second aspect is that the vast majority of the activity that was done by these North Korean threat actors was done on Validin using Astral VPN. If you aren't familiar with Astral, Astral is a very popular VPN of choice for North Korean threat actors. So putting these two things together, you can almost very definitively say that you can associate this activity with North Korea. However, to be honest, it didn't really matter. We kind of cheated, because we'd already seen these emails before in the context of Contagious Interview. There's a researcher in the audience, actually, Bartosz, don't know where you are, or if you're around right now. But anyways, he helped us identify that way back in January, he was helping us track this North Korean activity. What would happen is on Contagious Interview malware staging servers, they would leave a JavaScript web application at the path app.js up, and this was publicly accessible. And in that app.js, they would use it to actually notify the operators themselves about various victim information. So what we'd see, this is an example of one of these app.js files. The font might be a little small, but in essence, the JSON object actually includes a list of emails that these North Korean CI operators were using to be notified about these things. And we were helping Bartosz identify and collect these app.js files from across the internet. And so we'd seen so many of these that at this point, we knew this was North Korea. Obviously, when you see these emails signing up for your platform, you take immediate action. So within half an hour, we'd done the following three steps. We'd banned these email accounts from actually using the Validin platform. We'd blocked Astral VPN IPs on our firewall, and we'd completely stopped free email services from actually using the platform without admin intervention. So new users can't sign up with Gmail, ProtonMail, various other free email services. What's really interesting here is that we thought this was the end of it, but 2 weeks later, we see these actors sign up again. We've included the Gmail account for completeness, but of course the Gmail account didn't work. But these two domains are interesting because they're now using their own infrastructure, emails associated with their own infrastructure to actually sign up for the platform. We made a decision at this point to actually allow them to use the platform to track their searches and see what else we could discover, because pivoting off these domains, we were able to discover a whole set of Contagious Interview infrastructure. This led to some really interesting findings. I'm going to let Alex talk about that.
Yeah. Thanks, Sreekar. I hope you guys all can hear me well, and thank you for having us here today. I will just go to the next slide. Let me try that. Right. So how did the threat actors use actually Validin? So we saw them using 57 in total unique search terms, including IP addresses, domains, hashes, anything Validin has to offer, really. One interesting thing, though, was they never searched for any IOC that was in the blog post that Validin put out a few weeks ago before all of this happened, right? They searched exclusively for contagious interview IOCs. So what we think that really happened here was that they learned about Validin from the blog post, and then they decided to integrate the platform into their daily routine for investigating public CTI, alongside other platforms such as Maltrail, VirusTotal, and so on. So based on log data, we were also able to reconstruct their click flow even in the platform. So we saw them doing things like after inputting a search term, a domain in this case, in the search field, they often immediately pivoted to the reputation factor. So just for context, reputation factors are basically external links in Validin to attribution information about a given IOC or a search term. Also, they most likely use Slack for collaboration and coordination. That was pretty fun to observe. So based on web server log data, we were able to reconstruct the following scenario. So first, the Jim account, of course, the full form is a Jim MR and a couple of numbers there, but we will just call him Jim for the sake of simplicity now. So the Jim account searched for the webcamfixer.online, I think that's domain, in Validin, and then pasted the Validin search URL in Slack so that his buddies can follow up and catch up with what this guy has been researching so far. So what we actually saw in the web server log files were requests from Slackbot robots following Jim's search. So just for context, Slackbot robots are the Slack web agents that basically display these thumbnail views in Slack once a given website or a URL has been pasted in Slack, right? So following the Slack requests, we saw 4 additional requests, distinct requests with the same URL and from IPs that we mapped to different DPRK contagious interview accounts, such as Excellent Reporter, Rockstar, FairDef, and so on. These are all of in the cluster of emails that Sreekar just talked about a few minutes ago. So it's obvious that contagious interview actively monitors public CTI, but what do they really do with all of this information? So the thing is, we never saw any systematic or widespread changes in the infra based on what they've learned and what they've investigated. With the hope, we were thinking we will see something like that, and maybe they will try to make the infrastructure a bit more difficult to detect, to discover, or pivot to, but we never saw anything like that, never systematic, never widespread. We saw only a couple of targeted changes, I would say, based on Validin searches. So for example, once they saw that the skill master HTML title can be used to discover new contagious interview infra, they changed only the title of a couple of websites shortly after skill master was published as an IOC online. So how we really think that contagious interview operates in this manner is as follows. So once they see that a given server or an infrastructure has been flagged or detected by us as a community, they will consider that the infra is already burned at some point. And they start immediately planning how to compensate, how to scale up with new infra so they can sustain their operation and go on. Sreekar?
There's one really cool advantage we have here, and it's the fact that we have access to our own logs. We have really unique visibility here. We're actually able to track their searches and map them to the entire life cycle of the infrastructure that they're standing up and shutting down. The first example is really cool because we see that this account searched for these 3 domains that are all very similarly themed: hiring assessment, hire assessment, with the idea being they were looking for new infrastructure to actually purchase and to stand up as part of their contagious interview campaigns. The second example is really cool because it allows us to actually map out the entire life cycle of the infrastructure as a whole. I think the bottom is cut out a little bit, but I'll walk you through the whole thing. Essentially, the first time we saw this actor search this domain was on March 25th at 5:33, and they were actually registered this domain less than 8 minutes later. They search it a couple more times, and they search it again at 12:22 on April 22nd. The first time that we observed content actually deployed on this was about a day later. And we'd last actually crawled it, Validin, about 2 days before that. So sometime in that time frame, most likely on this time, on April 22nd, is when they actually deployed it. They search it a couple more times, and then it finishes and it resolves on May 13th. We're running a little low on time, so I'm going to go a little fast for the next couple of slides. The really cool thing about tracking the infrastructure is that they make OPSEC mistakes quite a bit frequently. So we actually find out that these second stage domains linking to their searches leave open directories open and actually leave this app.js path open. We're able to pull various files that definitely should not have been public from these app.js files that they left open, and also look at the timestamps from the open directories.
Yeah, so I will just try to wrap up really quickly. So to summarize, Contagious Interview actively monitors public CTI, and they use multiple CTI sources in doing so. So we mentioned VirusTotal, Maltrail, and of course, most recently, Validin as well. They collaborate, they exchange, they chat, they DM, right? They investigate public CTI in joint collaborative sessions, and they have mainly two use cases according to our assessments. The first one is scouting and vetting for new infra even before they actually buy it and deploy it. And even after they deploy it, then they will start continuously monitoring for any new detection signs. That being said, we think that they don't care very much actually if their infra is detected or flagged by us. As I mentioned before, we think that once they see that a given server or infra has been flagged, they will consider it as burned, and they will just continue planning how to compensate with new infra so they can sustain losses, for example, due to takedowns and whatnot, and simply move on. And finally, we had pretty unique visibility into the infrastructure purchasing and deployment and management practices, and we saw a lot of OPSEC mistakes. So in our opinion, this particular phase of the life cycle of Contagious Interview infrastructure is really a goldmine for us, for researchers. I think we can learn a lot from that. At the end, I would just say, stay tuned. We plan soon to release a blog post with many, many more details and IOCs. And thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, of course, we're here for you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.